So today we're going to be talking about the massive deal that just went through for UFC and Paramount and kind of everything that's going on with TKO over the last 12 months. We're talking about $15 billion in deals over the last. All right, let's talk about them. So this week, the UFC announced a new deal with Paramount Plus. This week we're going to be talking about big money deals that were just announced in the news. Specifically, the UFC and Paramount Plus deal that goes to $1.1 billion. But overall, how this incorporates into the landscape and looking across TKO Holdings and kind of what they've been doing. I'm Cormac, and if you don't know me, I run the Jonas Agency, where we help brands navigate this kind of media landscape chaos. And trust me, that the UFC and WWE just did with Paramount, Netflix, and ESPN is not just business as usual. It's a huge shift in the media landscape that every team, sport, league, and media company should be paying attention to. So if we walk through what actually happened here, the new media rights deal, it tells a pretty incredible story. First off, UFC was making around $550 million a year from ESPN. Heavy pay-per-view model, a lot of ads, a lot of subscriptions. You want to watch the big fight? That'll be $80 on top of your $200 a year ESPN Plus subscription. Now they're getting $1.1 billion annually from Paramount, and the kicker, no pay-per-views, all gone, completely done. The funny part about this is on the other side of their business is such a core leg. This was also done by WWE, going absolutely nuclear with this strategy. They didn't just do a single broadcast rights deal. They actually did 3. So Netflix is now paying them $500 million a year for Monday Night Raw. ESPN just signed them for $325 million annually across big events. Like ESPN just signed them for $325 million annually for the big events like WrestleMania. And before this, they were making around $430 million total across all of their deals. Now, 4 years later, they're making $825 million every year, which is a huge increase in the broadcast rates. That's not just doubling up their revenue. That's doubling it up while completely eliminating the largest barrier that they have for new fans. So when you see companies change their strategies like this overnight, it is almost always because the underlying data that they're seeing is fundamentally shifting. Now, the social media aspect of it comes in. TKO across their brands. They absolutely run social media and they know how to do it. The money on the side of the deals, I understand, gets headlines, but they are driving a massive amount of social media traffic, which is driving their success and growing these broadcast rights deals. You look, UFC's YouTube now has 21 million subscribers. Their Instagram, 48 million followers. TikTok is at 17 million and absolutely exploding engagement-wise with younger audiences. And individual fighters are standing up their own brands based on the success of UFC alone. You know, the thing that was really bothering the TKO execs on shore at night was the fact that despite all of this social media success and the massive amount of traffic they were driving, it was very, very difficult to monetize it, because when it came to actually converting folks into paying customers, that the barrier to entry was just too high. So if you're a 22-year-old that's just discovered Tom Aspinall through a TikTok highlight or Paddy Pimblett through one of his many social media posts, and you start following the storylines, you begin to get emotionally invested in them. When their fights are coming up, you need to then shell out at least $80 just to watch a single event. That's on top of paying for your ESPN Plus subscription for $200 a year, and Netflix, Spotify, whatever else. The math just doesn't work. So TKO knows that they built this amazing marketing funnel across social media, high engagement, high UGC content with fans. And then right before they hit this massive growth audience, and they're able to bring them in and then effectively put up this massive toll booth right before they convert. So they knew they had to pivot. Now, BW's approach to solving this problem was super, super smart. And I think it's going to be the template for how media companies and sports leagues operate going forward. They effectively have become platform agnostic, which is something that I always advise folks to do. They created a 3-tiered ecosystem. Netflix gets Monday Night Raw. You get your weekly appointment viewing that keeps people engaged consistently. ESPN gets their big tentpole events, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and the things that drive massive amounts of social conversion. And internationally, Netflix gets everything. But the super smart part is they timed this perfectly alongside the launch of ESPN's D2C platform, where effectively all of their premium events will be included with zero charge. So under the old system, You might have to, if you were paying $180 a year to Peacock to get the big events, plus whatever you're paying for cable or streaming to watch Raw. Now you get Raw on Netflix for about $15 a month, and you get premium access on ESPN for $30, which also includes college football, NBA, NHL, thousands of other live events. That's just removing a paywall. That's creating insane value density for their fans. And so WWE realized that they were effectively missing out between incentivizing people to pay $50 for one event or making them into lifetime fans so that they're able to make it far more accessible and affordable to a wider audience is super smart. The revenue model that they're building upon here is also the part that's completely overlooked when they analyze these deals. The difference between getting paid per transaction and getting paid through subscriptions isn't just about the subscriptions. Start again. Here's something that most people completely overlooked when they were analyzing these deals. The difference between getting paid per transaction versus getting paid through subscriptions isn't just about revenue predictability. It's about the data quality. Under the old pay-per-view model, UFC and WWE were getting feedback from people who paid $80. That data is incredibly skewed. You're only hearing for your most hardcore, high-spending consumers. You have no actual idea of what the casual fans want, how long they watch, what makes them turn off, and what gets them more excited, right? With subscription models, you get data from everyone. You see viewing patterns from casual fans, hardcore fans, people who watch for 10 minutes, and people who rewatch 5 times. Netflix can tell WWE exactly which wrestlers connect in different countries, which storylines work globally, and optimal episode lengths. That's a massive amount of feedback coming back for content development, allowing WWE to then iterate faster, test new formats, understand their audience, and also set up their merch in real time rather than waiting for quarterly pay-per-view buy rates to build around those tentpoles. From a business perspective, it's a lot cleaner. You're not taking a lot of the cyclical nature of your business out while still maintaining those tentpole events that will be kind of prime sales categories. So, and really where the area where I believe this gets a lot bigger than sports. The UFC and WWE the UFC and WWE aren't exactly operating in a vacuum here. This is part of a much bigger trend, and we're going to start to see this. The NFL, with both their diversification of Thursday Night Football and their sale to ESPN for their NFL network rights, has been huge. Major League Baseball is now experimenting with Apple TV and Peacock. F1 has been streaming globally, and now you've got these massive UFC and WWE deals where they're really rewriting the standard. The pattern is clear, though. Live sports are really, in a lot of cases, one of the last true appointment television opportunities for advertisers to reach consumers, but only if they can actually access the content. We don't want these consumers jumping through massive financial hoops to do so because it drops off considerably. I know last week CNN reported that traditional broadcasting cable now account for less than half of TV viewing in the US. Younger audiences expect content to be available where they are, on the platform they choose, and through what they already pay for. What's really happening here, these aren't just kind of media deals. There's a lot of competition going on for this kind of audience growth between the streaming platforms. Netflix, ESPN, and Paramount are really trying to buy these pre-engaged digitally native audiences to kind of bring them in. Ultimately, I think where this benefits folks like UFC and WWE is the fact that these media rights deals will allow them to reinvest so heavily inside of their own organizations that they'll be able to grow those rights much more quickly. I mean, if you think about ripple effects, the impacts are way more than just UFC and WWE and their shareholders over at TKO, who I'm sure are very happy about what's going on. For athletes, this is going to mean a lot more and more consistent exposure. Every fight's going to be available to every subscriber. Undercard fighters are going to get way more eyeballs on them. And more eyeballs mean more social media followers, brand partnership opportunities, and others. So the athletes are themselves going to have to adjust to this new reality. For content creators or agencies like mine, creates a ton of new opportunities, right? There are way more chances for audience engagement, which means more brand integration, more storyline development, and a lot more content creation going on with these brands. The really smart long-term play here, so I think people are missing, is that the streaming services are funding the expansion of these leagues. WWE has largely been built on ticket sales and merchandise sales over years. So now UFC and WWE have all this institutional knowledge and an additional couple $1 billion in guaranteed revenue. They pour that right back into building out their own production capabilities and expanding their merchandise operations, developing new revenue streams that will then allow them to in-house their own media rights in the future, if you ask me. So they can now, UFC can now expand kind of their discovery platforms, Dana White Contender Series, Looking for a Fight, some of those past, even the Ultimate Fighter show. They can expand that to a much greater degree and turn out more content while building athlete profiles that build into that engagement strategy. And then on top of it, the biggest impact might be on other sports properties that are still clinging to their outdated models, right? If you're running a sports league and you're watching UFC double their revenue every 4 years while making their product more accessible, how do you really justify keeping paywalls in place, right? I don't think we're going to see a massive domino effect. My guess would be boxing is probably next. That sport, super fragmented, expensive pay-per-view models really kind of make it ripe for disruption in this way. Tennis, golf, and additionally, a lot of the sports that are looking to expand into the US are ones where we're starting to see others rethink their approach to media rights, specifically looking at a couple of the deals for YouTube streamers actually purchasing sport rights, both for the Saudi Pro League Soccer and I believe Division II French Rugby for different channels in the UK where they're live streaming on matches that are happening via YouTube. So kind of what comes next? What does all this mean? My take on what this means going forward, if you're a sports team, league, or media company, podcast, focused on growth, paywalls are like a liability. They really are. The companies that figure this out first are going to have massive competitive advantages. Secondly, the winning formula is becoming clear. You need social media for discovery and engagement, subscription platforms for conversion and retention, and integrated merchandise strategies to really drive that revenue up higher. Third, data-driven content optimization is going to separate the winners from the losers. The real value isn't in removing barriers. It's in gaining access to the audience data that allows for kind of this Kaizen continuous improvement. When you look at this, it's not just about the UFC and WWE making more money. It's a completely new approach to building and monetizing audiences. Companies that kind of get around this early are going to dominate, and the ones that don't are going to be stuck charging $80 for an individual event while their competitors are building global communities for $5 or $10 a month. If you look at this, other sports properties should really be paying attention to this and getting ahead of it, not waiting to catch up later.